This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. We join you today. Unfortunately, Will Mahan is not with us. He's out there at a youth group retreat, so everybody should be praying for him. By this time, he's back home, so you may be just wanting to pray for him to regroup after a long weekend, but he'll rejoin us at a future date. But we'll be without Will today. But Ben Hayes is with us. And my faithful, wonderful companion, Whitney Creasy, has rejoined the podcast with us as well. Ben, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I am feeling good today and just excited as usual to be on with you guys and to have a special guest with us today. We have Addie Williams with us, and she is a native of our area, from the same area that Travis and I are from. She did, I think, camp with us, and Mars Hill, I believe, Mars Hill graduate, if I'm not mistaken on that. And so she's somebody that we're friends with on Facebook and Instagram, and I've kind of been following her story a little bit. She has an interesting story that I'm hoping she'll share with us. I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more if there's other interesting things to tell us today, Addie.
I did graduate from Mars Hill, and I went to Freed-Hardeman University, met my husband right before I went, and he was a sophomore there, kind of connected through the Tuscumbia Church of Christ Ukraine mission group. And both of our siblings had gone on that trip and decided that we should date since we were going to be at the same college. And I never dated anybody, so it sounded good to me. And so we basically got to Freed, and I was just like, hey, we were told we were supposed to date, so we did, and we stayed together. And we graduated. He graduated in 2015. My husband's name's Tyler. He graduated in 2015, and I graduated in 2016. And we lived in the Florence area for 6 months. And then our big goal after Tyler graduated was for him to get into occupational therapy school. And so from there, we went to UAB for him to be a OT, to be training in that. And he applied for UAB while we were on our honeymoon. I had big plans for a honeymoon. It was not sitting in a hotel room writing recommendation letter, like getting all that sorted out for him to apply for UAB, but it all worked out. And in March of 17, we learned that he got in. With that, we were going to be adding on to our student loan debt. And we had Freed-Hardeman debt for him, for Tyler. And then we were looking into the face of graduate school debt. So he went to UAB from the fall of 17 and graduated in the winter of 19. And the whole time through that, I was a middle school special education teacher. I coached 2 sports. We did not see each other in the fall. I was at the school all the time, and we ate hot dogs from the concession stand when we got home. And that was just kind of how we rolled for every fall. Fall of 19, when we were getting ready for Tyler to graduate, we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. He had to take his boards to be able to get a license, to be able to practice. And we could see our income, like the potential to move up. It was great. It looked good. But we started job searching, and I have a spreadsheet of 30 different therapy clinics for pediatrics. Pediatrics is what he wanted to do in Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi. And at the time, none of them seemed to be hiring. And if they were, he was going to be practicing as just like his own OT. He we kept searching and searching, and finally an ad came up, and it was one of those like sketchy, if I click here, it's either going to shut my computer down or something like that. Like it just looked really sketchy, but it said, have you considered applying for Alaska? And this was on a website, like you would use the typical Indeed, or there's another one for like careers, LinkedIn, but this was like therapyjobs.com, like something really generic. And we ended up clicking on it and just looking into it. And I looked up the clinic and I was like, no, that's a legit clinic. And so it was Alaska though. And one of our main things we had said whenever we were dating was like, if you'll stay in the South, I'll stay in the South. Like if we're cool with that, that's like our big life thing. Like we want to do adventures, but let's just stay in the South. We're not interested in
Is that South Alaska that y'all wanted to stay
that's
in?
what we realize now.
Okay.
It's South Alaska.
I'm fairly certain that I've seen this Hallmark movie somewhere.
Oh yeah.
You know, where
Yeah.
you get online and you apply for some doctor job, therapy job in Alaska, and anyway. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's how it was for y'all, but
we were like, I was like, we joked about it for a couple of weeks, and I was like, what if you just applied? I mean, odds are it's not a legit thing, but if they ask you for an interview, you get to practice an interview. It's for Alaska, so like if you deny it, it's not like we're ever going to see these people again. Like just get an interview. And so he got an interview, and once he got the interview, we had watched YouTube videos and done a bunch of research, and at that time we were like, no, like we really want the job, and our family thought we were crazy. And so he got the job, and the way the lady talked to us on the phone, it sounded like as long as you're willing to move to Alaska, that's our biggest problem with people, with our therapists, is they just don't want to live up here. And so as long as you're ready for that and your wife's cool with that. And so
so the question is, who applies for a job in Alaska and then says, I don't want to go to Alaska?
I bet a lot of people see like the income difference and they're like, I mean,
yeah,
maybe. And then they go talk to their wives and they're like, no.
No.
Like, does your wife know that this is like what you've done? But I was probably more on board. I think once I got on board with like, yeah, it's fine, we can leave our families and pack up our lives and move. He was like, oh, okay, if you're cool, let's just do it. So he
well, that's something that we've kind of been following with you guys. At least I have on Instagram, just kind of following. And I know that you've got, it's kind of been a journey. It was not just a journey to Alaska, but you also have where you kind of share financial advice too. I don't know that you're a financial advisor, but you've at least, posted things, and you may be, I'm not sure, but you've posted things that I've read and I've looked at and I've been encouraged by. And one of the reasons Whitney is on with us too is because I think you guys are like two peas in a pod, because she does a lot of the same thing. And so I was excited to have y'all on here because I'm at the other end of the coin. I'm the one who needs the help. Generally speaking, I'm the one now who I'm listening to soak in. So tell us about, one, about the journey to Alaska, but two, about, this financial journey that you guys have been on. And Whitney, of course, may chime in as well. So
financial wise, we were already on this journey to become debt free prior to Alaska. However, Alaska and this job helped boost that quote unquote gazelle intensity, is what Dave would say, and the rate at which we could pay off our debt, just because the incomes are higher up here, based primarily on how rural it is and like the extreme conditions. But our financial journey started right before we got married. We went through a premarital counseling little like meetings with my former youth minister as a kid, Evan Burns. And so what most of those look like are some questions that'll help stimulate conversation between the couple to make sure that they're on the same page, and from anything from financial to kids to whatever, and try to just your counselor. Try to get people on the same page, and if they're not, let's connect some things and figure out what we need to do to prepare ourselves for a healthy marriage. And one of those was finances. And I grew up in a household that practiced Dave Ramsey techniques. I don't really remember talking about him all the time. Like, our poor child is going to hear about Dave Ramsey, but I knew my parents paid cash for cars. They didn't use credit cards. Their house is paid off. They did an extra job so they could pay for our school at Mars Hill and then pay for colleges. And so I went to school debt-free by the grace of my parents. And so I graduated without any student loan debt. And Tyler had graduated with about $40,000 to $50,000 from undergraduate debt. And not that that is a parent's job to pay for your kids' college. So we knew, like, this is just something that we did so that we could go to college. We're fine with it. However, we want it gone. And so with that premarital counseling, we talked about an envelope system, which is a Dave Ramsey concept, and some little things, but we weren't listening to Dave Ramsey. I wasn't reading a book. I didn't do Financial Peace University, all of his stuff that he promotes, but kind of was doing, and I knew we wanted to pay off the debt. So I threw a big chunk of money at his debt that I had in savings before we got married, and I would not suggest that to anyone. It was really dumb of me. Could have waited a couple months, but he had been graduated for 6 months, and so his loans were about to start taking on interest, and we thought, as soon as we can get as much as this gone.
He loved you enough to stay with you after you paid off his debt.
So that's been like a joke in our house. You shouldn't joke about divorce, but it's been a joke that, like, are you just keeping me around so that I can get you through grad school? But we got through grad school and I'm still here. So I funded his life through grad school, as in I kept food on the table and stuff, but we didn't stay gazelle intense when we lived in Birmingham. Paying off debt and stuff. We really were just shocked we had enough money, I think. When you live near Birmingham, your rent's pretty expensive and you're still getting paid Alabama teacher wages. It's not that much. Y'all are both in the education world. And so we were just like, if we have money left over at the end of the month, cool. So we kind of just let our savings stack up. But by 2019, we were about to graduate. We were like, see the light at the end of the tunnel. Kind of talked about that earlier. And my dad had mentioned, like you're doing Dave Ramsey, and they call it ish, like doing it sorta, but you're missing a few pieces that could help you. And have you listened to his podcast? And I was like, Dad, you know what a podcast is? So I was really impressed with my dad that he knew what a podcast was. He listens to talk radio, but yeah.
Hats off to Dad.
So I was like, okay, fine. If my dad listens to this podcast, I'll listen to it. I probably won't enjoy it, but I am really nosy and I love to hear about other people's finances and like how they, like the questions they have. And I was like, if they ask the question, I don't feel so dumb for having that question. And so I really got hooked to the podcast and I loved it. And I realized I was already doing some things that were kind of out of order. We were doing baby step 4 where I was investing into my retirement prior to having the debt paid off. And so I needed to stop that. Wasn't much, but that was something that I realized that I was wrong. And it humbled me to know that I did not have everything figured out. So I started listening to him and we made a chart and we have it on our fridge. It had 80 boxes and each box was $1,000. And when you make $2,400 a month and you're paying rent and you're paying for groceries, seeing $1,000 box that you have to like save up to shade in, it's pretty overwhelming and all. But we decided in 2019 that August that we had enough to pay off his, to pay cash for his last semester of college. And we did that. And then we just kind of got the ball rolling from there. We came to Alaska with $69,000 in debt. And so we knew the income was going to be higher here. And we saw that we could still live, even though like price inflation, we could still live within the means that we lived in Birmingham. And so the income was higher, but our living expenses were still about the same. So that was encouraging and exciting. And we could see how we can knock this debt out quickly. And if we hated Alaska, we could just do it a year and come home. But we love it. And so right now we're just here. We're not planning to come back home. Sorry, Mom and Dad. We're not planning to stay forever. We're just we like it. And if we start not liking it, then I guess we'll move. But for now, we really enjoy it. But yeah.
Sort of the Abraham and Sarah type move. Like, we're going to go up here. We have no idea. Never been there before. But go and, go and flourish. And I think that you mentioned the gazelle intensity. And I think that was, and y'all definitely have a lot in common, because I literally just brought home a paycheck and, all right, Whitney, you do what has to be done. But for me, I think the gazelle intensity was the hard thing to maintain. Like, once you start getting that confirmation that you've paid something off, that kind of puts some gas in the tank and gets you excited and gets you fired up, and then you move to the next one. But for me, that gazelle intensity, but I think the phrase he says, and I'll let Whitney speak a little to this, is to live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. And so it's kind of the hard part is the front end. But then you get to that, paying a car with cash. Whitney, you got anything along those lines? You were definitely the engine behind us getting debt free, more so than I was.
Well, I mean, I guess just the reason behind wanting to do that is just really to be financially secure and to be able to take care of your family. And, when things do happen, like this year we had a pandemic, and there were a lot of people who, really struggled through this year because they hadn't really made wise financial decisions up until this point. And so they were already kind of on a slippery slope financially. And then maybe they lost a job, or they didn't lose their job, but they couldn't go to work for a period of time. And then that further hurt their financial situation and just added more stress to an already stressful situation. And so I guess just being prepared, if you can, is always a good thing. And so that was a big reason behind why we wanted to be debt free. We're not completely debt free. We bought a house. We were completely debt free. We waited to buy a house until we had paid off all of our debt. But we're still working on paying off this house. But it is still freeing to know that you don't owe anything on any other kinds of debt.
And for all these people out there who are listening to our podcast who are feeling bad right now about not being debt free like the other three people, I'm not debt free. So there you go. You guys can know, listen, absorb, because that's what I'm doing, and hopefully learn from it. But you guys all mentioned something that I think is huge in this, and that is the why.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have your why, right? You got to kind of decide, what is it that I'm wanting? I think Lonnie talks about, I've heard him in his podcast, and then when we've heard him speak, it's the difference in what do I want now and what do I want most?
Yeah.
Like, what do I really want right now? Well, that's easy. I mean, I can go spend money and do whatever, but what I want most is security, help with the family, having something to leave my 8,000 kids, whatever it may be, that's the why, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, the why is super important. And I think a lot of people might look at it and say, well, I don't really care to be rich, and I don't really care to be rich either. I just want to be able to travel, and if I'm in debt, I don't feel like I can travel with an ease of like a peace of mind, or I just want to be sure that, I can pay cash for a car so that I don't have to have a car loan and be paying extreme amount of interest. And One of my favorite verses that Dave's show, they always talk about is Hebrews 12:11, where like no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but like once you work through that, you have to have a goal at the end and a reason why, a big something to look forward to in order to work through that. And so like living today, so like the person that I am next year is like thankful for the way I live today and not just living for today.
But doing that
And
comes with
yeah.
challenges, right? Doing
Oh
that
yeah.
comes with challenges. So what are some of the biggest challenges you found in that endeavor of financial freedom, but also in that endeavor of going to Alaska in the middle of a pandemic? I guess that's a two-edged question
Oh
there.
yeah. Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges is just getting over the fact that not everybody's going to understand why you're doing it, or getting over the fact that we share a car and we make well enough money. Like most of our, our coworkers are driving really nice cars because they make a good living. But we're driving a 2004 Trailblazer that we share. And so like, but we had that plan to not get two cars and not have two car insurances and two maintenance, and just getting over the fact that people may not understand why you chose to do that instead of investing into Amazon or Google or Bitcoin or whatever. There's a lot of things that people want to throw out there to us that we should have done instead of paying off our debt. And so we've just kind of had to get thick skin for that kind of stuff. But challenges in the grocery store where you're looking at your grocery budget and thinking, man, I could take out more. Like even this month, I was telling my mom, I was like, I've got to like figure out what all we have in our pantry because I bought this and took it out of my household grocery budget. And so now we have 15 days left in the month, and I've already gone over my grocery budget like by $6. So I know that I've got food at home. And so I start going through the pantry, like, what do we actually have? And just making those little sacrifices have been challenging because it would be so much easier for me just to go ahead and submit a $100 Walmart order and get food for the week and not think about all the food I already have, and just let it go to waste and throw it away later. But no, I was digging in the deep freeze, counting the pizzas we had left, or like literally making a chart. And so just those little sacrifices every day that you drive by 100 coffee shops on the way to work and you decide like today I won't get that. Those things, those all built up, just add a little bit of stress to your day. And then when you get home, and just like anybody else who gets home and comes home to their spouse, and one thing is said, you're like things happen like that, and it could get built up because all day today I had to think about how I couldn't get that coffee, or I couldn't get that at Target, or just the spending stuff. Or when our car breaks down for the 100th time and we call a friend to come jump us off, and you're like, we could just go finance a car. We could, but we're not going to. But you have to work through those things as a couple, as individuals, and that's challenging. Moving to Alaska was challenging to convince people that this is what we wanted to do, not just for financial reasons, but this is something like we thought would help us grow as a couple. And I'm sure people thought we were absolutely crazy. And it did not help that Tyler worked for 4 days and then they closed the clinic and we had absolutely no income. So he worked for 4 days, and then on March 16th, they closed, and they didn't reopen to April 29th. So we had about a month and a half of no income looking at us, but we didn't know when they would reopen because we got the 2 week, like, okay, everybody shut down for 2 weeks, and then they just kept pushing it back. Thankfully, Alaska had so few cases until recently that things, once they reopened, they kind of picked up quickly. So by June and July, we had a normal income back of what we expected to make. But me and Tyler, I decided I was too bored. I had to get out of the house. I did not like seeing that we weren't making any traction. We had enough money saved from the move that we would be fine. But I decided that we should go work at Target. And so we went and fulfilled orders at Target. And there was one night where we were working a night shift, passing each other Cheerio boxes up to the top shelf to back stock. And I'm like, we literally moved up here to make way more than this and to have an adventure and only work 4 days a week, and it was going to be wonderful. We're working night shift at Target. But like, I'm sure people thought like, well, that's what y'all deserve for moving all the way to Alaska for this job. But it like, for some reason we had hope through it all that it was going to be fine. The jobs were going to open back up. We were going to go back to work. And so we just went to Target for a couple weeks and worked, and
it takes a level of stubbornness.
Yeah.
And I credit my football coaches. You finish what you start. But I mean, like you said, you didn't see that coming. I mean, we didn't see a leukemia diagnosis coming. We were blessed to be debt free for the most part when that came. But it's those things in life that throw you a curveball, and I think Dave speaks to that. Being ready. Is it Murphy that moves in? Is that what he says? You build an extra room for Murphy's Law to happen where things just go crazy, and he moves in for a while. And it's that level of stubbornness. You mentioned hope. We're Christians. We believe in God, and that when you give him anything, he can multiply it and he can use it. And you mentioned your relationship with your husband growing, and I think for sure we had that. And it didn't mean we didn't have discussions sometimes, because I was always wanting to go do something, wanting to go spend money, and she'd have to be like, and she'd pull out her little book. She couponed. She was pretty hardcore coupon, so she had a little baseball card collection book that she would keep all these coupons, and she'd sit out on Sunday night before the week, and I mean, just hardcore coupons. So she would spend all that time. So that was a good reminder for me, like, she's putting in a tremendous amount of effort. The least you can do is not tempt her to spend money that we're trying to save. But that's something that we look back on fondly now, the sacrifices and things that we did. I do have the question though, when you finally get debt free, are you going to make the trek to Nashville, or are you just going to call on the phone and scream?
Man, okay, so we have the money in the bank to pay it off right now. There's no interest on the loans, and so we're waiting like till mid next week, I think, and we're just gonna pay it off. There's talk of forgiveness of debt and stuff, but I don't see that happening. I'm not banking on the government, and we took the loans out, we owe them. So it's there, it's ready to go. But man, I'm going to be there in Florence in the end of February, 1st of March. And you both have to be there. And Tyler's not going to be, he's going to be in Alaska still. So I'm thinking maybe we could swing it for Thanksgiving, but I definitely will apply and see if they'll let us do a call-in or a debt-free scream, because that would just be icing on the cake.
Travis and Whitney did that, didn't you? Didn't you guys go up there and do that?
We got to meet him and scream at him. It was great. Well, as we like to do and wrap up, we've got some fun questions.
So here's a one, and I think you've already alluded to part of this, but I want to hear your other answer. What is one unpopular opinion that you have?
Off-brand Oreos are trash. I don't know. Everything else off-brand we can handle. Off-brand Oreos, and there's never like a time when you can't fit Oreos into the budget. We went through so many Oreos in our house during quarantine.
That's straight talk right there.
We have friends that are going through the debt-free journey as well. They're going to be done this summer. And she messaged me the other day and said, we're going to have to start buying formula for our baby. And my husband mentioned that Oreos may be what gets cut. And I was like, girl, I will bring you Oreos. I got you. It is okay. Like, I will fund your Oreos. I don't need you not to have Oreos. So Oreos, off-brand Oreos are trash. I don't know what they're trying to sell people, but don't do it.
Well, Addie, we sure do appreciate you taking time to be with us. We appreciate Tyler getting you set up to be with us and using his app to be with us. Thank you. We want to encourage you, obviously, to finish the course, and encourage anybody that's out there listening to this to, get that gazelle intensity. And if there's any way, once again, you can look at the Instagram there. and get some encouragement there. But thank you for being with us. Heritage Christian University is offering 2 classes at no charge this spring semester. Join Dr. Bill Bajent's Biblical Interpretation or Justin Guen's New Testament Letters and Apocalypse class starting January 25th. To audit one or both of these courses, visit www.hcu.edu and click Apply Now. Be sure to select Audit Student Application in the drop-down menu. To see all the classes available, visit www.hcu.edu or email media@hcu.edu for more information. These classes were created to be taken remotely, so no matter your schedule or location, you can be a part of learning more about the Bible this year. Most ministry graduates are burdened with thousands in debt. At Heritage Christian University, they offer affordable and effective degrees in biblical studies so that you can thrive in your ministries. I myself took many courses at Heritage Christian University, and it completely changed my approach to ministry. I've been blessed tremendously by this wonderful university and encourage you to take part as well.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.